candidates that may be present in the room. We're asking them, courtesy to the other candidates to step out. I think there's HR has a waiting room. Is that not right, Caroline, that they can sit in?
There is a waiting room.
Okay. There's a waiting room, so at 3 o'clock when the first interview begins, we'll have only that candidate that's scheduled at the 3 o'clock hour present in this room.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just if someone wants to sit here, though, they are allowed to.
They are allowed to.
Okay, just will encourage.
This
Yes,
is
sir.
an open meeting, but we're just
I understand.
asking as a courtesy to the other candidates
Sure.
that they only be present during the time that they're scheduled. And we've got 3 interviews scheduled for this afternoon. The first one beginning at 3 o'clock, and we have a 3, 3:30, and a 4:30 interview today. I'm gonna ask, I know most of the people in the room today, I know our city attorney, John Maddox, and HR is here, and Ronnie Lance, I've known for a number of years already, and 2 folks in the back. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, my name is Holden Mesk, and I'm here with Sunshine Request, filming the meeting online on Facebook, streaming
Okay.
live.
My name's Maddie Swims, and same.
Could you spell your last name, please?
Mesk, M-E-S-K.
And, I'm sorry, your name was?
Maddie Swims, Maddyswims.
Now, because we're only limiting, or we are limiting the interviews to no more than a half hour, probably closer to 20 minutes, which might give us a chance to have a brief exchange or chat or answer any questions that may come forth. We'll try and, we should, as board members, try to limit our questions to about 3 or 4 each. That way, everybody has a chance to have a question, and we should not, and avoid being redundant also on questions that may be asked by other board members. I'd like to take a lead today, if you don't mind, and ask Rod the first question when we do begin the interviews, and then we can go right down the line or in any order you may choose in asking the candidates questions. I would suggest that we all take notes, especially on questions that we've asked, and that way we have an opportunity to have some discussion later on. Outside counsel,
Yes.
John, do you have any comments to make?
No, sir, I think you've got the procedure down you need to follow. I think that was very well stated. I think it is fair to ask candidates, and I think that also should extend to, the intent of the board is to discuss the substance of these questions before you start the interviews. You do have between now and 3 o'clock if you're ready to do that. Alternatively, if you're ready to start, and I think your 3 o'clock candidate is present, if I understand correctly.
I'll go look.
I think yours,
Oh, is he already out there?
I don't know.
Okay. You could go ahead with his interview if you want.
I'd like to take a minute or two just to review a few things before we do begin,
Okay.
if you don't mind, and that'll also give folks an opportunity to look over the applications one more time prior to beginning the interviews today. Yes, sir.
Only one thing I'd suggest, as from having done oral interviews in the past a lot, I would select your 4 questions, and it'd be the same 4 questions for all the people being interviewed.
Correct. Correct.
And actually, the same person ask the same question.
Correct.
Each of the four. So we may need a few minutes, there's a lot of questions in here to choose from.
Right.
And so that, Mr. Chairman, is the kind of thing I had in mind. If you are gonna review the questions you're gonna ask and pare them down as a board, now's the time to do that between now and.
Correct.
The question, clarification, though, we're limiting ourselves to 4 questions.
No,
Not
four questions
necessarily.
total.
So we are limiting ourselves to 4 questions.
Well, it depends on the time, though, you know.
Well-
We need to space it, so make sure that everybody has an opportunity to ask their questions. And if there's time available towards the end, we can still open it up to other questions.
So we have to choose 4 questions.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and the reason being is you have to keep them pretty much identical.
Exactly.
And you know, and 4 questions will take up more time with answers and replies than you think, so.
Right.
And that also leaves a little bit of room, like if there's a follow-up question or something
Right.
like that.
And if I ask a question and don't ask a follow-up to it, any of you are welcome to ask a follow-up question to mine or respectively to any other member of the board also as a follow-up question.
Yeah, and the candidate may ask for further clarification, I mean, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we've all been
Yeah.
through interviews before. I think we can pretty much expect pretty much the same process for the most part.
So would this be a good time for us to express our preferences in regard to questions
Good.
that we will ask?
Good.
Well, one question, actually 2 questions, which could be combined, which I would like to have answers to, are in section A, biographical and self-assessment.
Uh-huh.
I would be interested in how candidates, number 6, had learned about the Civil Service Board. Number 5, why are they interested in this position?
Your initials next to those questions.
Yeah, and I think that could be asked as one question.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can be combined, sure. Yeah.
Under that one, I
Yeah.
like number 2.
Okay.
Do you have, I thought I made an additional copy for myself, I'm sorry, do you have a copy?
I do.
Okay. Type in or what the question is.
Complete.
I don't know what that.
Is that- Mike? By the way, my question is off this sheet. It is not on this sheet. I have an additional question.
Well,
It relates to some of these questions here, but, and you'll see, when it's asked. But, Mike, which,
well, I've got 2 of the same sheet.
oh, you do? Okay, I'm sorry.
So, I don't have the second sheet, go past B.
There. One additional point, by the way, that's not related to the interviews today. I would hope by the end of the day, we'll have selected our 5th member of the board. And as part of the meeting tomorrow, our regular 2:30 business meeting, I'd like to have John, if you don't mind, and you can do it in conjunction with HR, provide a overview, kind of refresher of the board's responsibilities.
I'd love to be able to do that.
Oh, that's right, you're out of-
tomorrow.
you're-
I'm
that's
under
right,
a
you're out of-
conflict that I just cannot
Yeah, you
get out
can't.
of. But and also, Mr. Chairman, while we're discussing that, I know I mentioned to you that I would try to get in touch with Shannon, I never got in touch with her. So very short notice. I don't know whether they have, I don't know if Caroline might know, a set of the same materials. I know when I started with the Civil
I
Service
have.
Board, they had done a training on sort of, you know, the basics of being a open.
Open meeting.
Meetings body,
Yeah.
public records.
I have a copy of that notebook, by the way, I found mine 3 years ago.
Shannon has it, she's out sick today, but I will get it from her.
And we realize it's very, very short notice, but if the board has selected his fifth member to try to just roll ahead with tomorrow being, their regular meeting, go ahead and get the training done so that, by the time the next.
Is that something the HR director could do? We're suggesting that at our regular scheduled meeting tomorrow, assuming we have our fifth member appointed and then sworn in, that they be given an overview of the board's responsibilities, the open meeting law of the state, and it's that primer that we each got when we became members of the board, and it wouldn't hurt for all of us to hear it once more. Our outside counsel's not available for tomorrow's meeting, otherwise he agreed to have done that, but. And you have copies of that notebook? Okay, I still have mine, a couple years back. Great.
Are you ready for your first?
Is everybody, Mike, did I get your question? Or questions?
Yeah, pretty much.
Which one?
It's C3.
C3, okay. Okay.
That's what he said. Alan, I didn't hear what question you chose.
I chose one that is actually off the sheet that I talked to our outside counsel about. You can see it here.
Sorry, I needed to step out and make a call, I apologize.
Go ahead.
It's on.
Okay, I'll wait till you get that.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
yeah. And
That was gonna be,
it's a variation of the theme.
then, you and I? And I'm good.
Okay.
For consideration,
Yeah.
Section B, board relations, item number 7,
Number,
B7.
it's on the second page.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I could include that in my, I can have a 3-part question,
Good.
if that will work for the board.
I don't have a problem with that.
That's fine.
Cheryl, do you have a second question?
Got that one,
Which one?
this part, but that between what you and Mark just said, that.
But you may want to do a follow-up to that too.
Okay, yeah, I can just take some notes and if I need to. I
That's
can-
6 and 7. So our first interviewee is present in the
Yes,
outside?
sir. Is that Mr. Devereaux?
Mr. Devereaux. We're a few minutes early, but it's all right.
hard work. Rick Devereaux.
Good to meet you, sir.
Good to meet you too, Rick.
Carol Gilman.
Hi.
John Henn.
Okay, Rick Devereaux, yeah.
I'm serving as acting chair today.
Okay. It's okay, right here?
Absolutely. Get comfortable. We'll take about 20 minutes or so today for the interview.
Okay.
It's usually standard with city interviews for positions on boards and
Yeah.
commissions. And welcome and thank you for your application. I'm going to begin with the first question, if you don't mind. And on the city application, they always ask for questions related to conflict of interest in terms of more business or financial relations with the city. And this board is a bit different. Because we're a quasi-judicial board, we have really a different role to play than other boards and commissions. So I am most interested in whether you have any personal, professional connections, relationships that might represent conflicts, real or perceived, with city staff, city council members, or any of the classified employees that might be involved in a grievance before us that could affect your delivering in a partial decision or cause you to recuse yourself from any cases.
I don't have any conflicts or relationships like that I'm aware of. I'm a member of the Rotary Club of Asheville, and that club, during his sort of being a member of that club over the last 5 years, I've met people like the city manager, Gary Jackson, was a member of our club. The former police chief was a member of the club. We have a city councilman who's a member. So in sort of the weekly meetings, we'll have those kind of interactions with folks like that. Oftentimes that have obviously a role in the city. There may be other city employees that are part of that organization, but that's about all I can think of in terms of my relationship.
So you don't see anything that could affect any position you might take on a grievance, whether it's with the city or on part of the classified employee?
No, I really don't. One reason this position interested me is that I feel like in some sense, I don't have a dog in the fight. You know, I feel like I can bring sort of a fresh set of eyes. I've lived in Asheville for about 6 years, but I've never been a city employee and don't have the city employee perspective per se, and I don't have any previous connections with city management. But I read about our city in the newspaper, and I'm passionate about Asheville, and based on my experience, I thought this was a good way that I could contribute and give back. But I really feel like I bring more of an independent kind of perspective to this, or would bring an independent perspective to this board.
Well, we all hope for acting independently.
Yeah.
On this
Right.
board.
Right.
Carol?
Thank you. General, what do you consider your professional strengths to be that would help contribute to this board?
Okay. I think chief among my strengths is my experience during my government service in managing large numbers of military and civil servant employees at the various jobs that I've held. So, and not just as a supervisor, but someone who's responsible for overseeing processes related to personnel administration, everything from compensation, how people are appraised, how they file grievances, how how grievances are adjudicated. What we called in the military the Inspector General, who often got involved with complaints, EEO matters, discrimination, sexual harassment. And as a commander in the military, I really had responsibility for both sides of that equation, not just sort of the management perspective, but ensuring all the processes that were centered around valuing the employee and their contribution and their proper channels for getting issues resolved and so forth. So, even though my time in the Air Force got involved with a lot of the technical aspects of the military, as we always said, our most important resource was our people. And without the highly trained people that you take care of and that you develop, your capabilities are limited. And I feel like I could bring that same perspective to this board, which I'm sure already has that, but could reinforce that kind of mindset that our city, our government is only as good as the people who work within it and are contribute so much to what our city does.
Thank you.
Mark?
First of all, sir, thank you for your service.
Thanks.
You've made a lifetime out of that contribution. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
How did you learn about the open seat on the Civil Service Board?
Yeah, I learned about it from VJ Kapoor, city councilman, mentioned to me, and I think it may have been at a Rotary meeting, that, hey, there was a position opening up, and said you ought to check it out. So, and I had been a little bit familiar with the Civil Service Board, just reading articles in the paper about different actions in the last few years, and so it was, I always thought it was a board that was very sort of fundamental to the effective workings of the city. And so I went to the website, saw that there was an opening, and there was an application process, and kind of looked at my sense of the time commitments and so forth, and decided that, it was something that I ought to put my name in that.
Okay. And as a follow-up question, the city of Asheville has recently considered and submitted legislative action that would have the effect of abolishing or severely limiting the Civil Service Board. I'd like to know your thoughts regarding the city's actions.
To me, that's a curious position, because as I read the law and the city policies in place that govern the actions of this board, it seems to me a valuable, if not necessary, component. My time in government, in federal government, it was very apparent that not only did you need processes for addressing grievances and providing good administrative oversight of personnel matters, you needed a strong perception that those processes were intact and were valued. And I think that makes both employees as well as management sort of strengthens their view that that there's good oversight over the employee program. So my sense, if I didn't think this board was valuable and effective, I wouldn't be applying for it. So, but it'd be a topic that I'd like to learn more about. What sort of reasons for that kind of perception.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Mike?
How do you view and weigh the balance between due process and efficiency when it comes to hiring, firing, promotional decisions, and disputes thereof between employees and supervisors / city department
Well, I think there does need to be a balance between due process and efficiency. You know, at the end of the day, we need our government, through the work of our civil servants, to get things done and to be able to efficiently operate, manage those agencies. But left unchecked or untethered, it's easy for not just, you know, things to go wrong and mistakes to be made, but the perception that due process is not being followed. So I think, you know, I'm a real believer in process, and that we ought to follow the processes that are in place and evaluate those processes when they seem overly cumbersome or not adding value, but always to be mindful of the perception of those processes and the value they can contribute, because I think that perception can be just as important as it's their impact on efficiency or effectiveness of the organization.
Thank you.
I guess I'll come back with another question. This is a question that is not based on necessarily any past board experience or any expectation that may happen in the future. But I'm sure you've served on a number of boards in the Air Force. How do you feel about disagreements among board members on maybe particular grievance cases when this board or boards you've been a part of can't come to consensus? We have a 5-member board.
Right.
Hopefully we'll have a 5-member board
Yeah.
soon. But
Yeah, I think it's, you know, the boards that I've served on and that I've sometimes chaired, one of the things that I think is paramount is the opportunity for all board members to air their points of view, and for the other board members to hear those differing perspectives respectfully, professionally. I'm a believer in boards should follow their rules, follow their due process, make sure that all voices are heard, but by the same token, to be disciplined about things like points of order when discussions get out of bounds or out of scope, or in areas that the board really doesn't have discretion to operate in, that it's important for boards to stay in their lane. I think consensus on a board is an ideal, and it's valuable when you achieve it, but if it's at the cost of board members who are not informed or just willing to go along without being able to air their different perspectives, then I think it can be harmful. I'd rather a board reach a position by a majority when all voices are heard and folks have done their homework and they've agreed to disagree, but there's enough respect and understanding of the different perspectives that the board feels like we can respect this path that has been chosen by the majority. But I think it's the chair's duty to really try to achieve consensus if possible, because over time, divisive votes, I think, can hurt the sort of the relationship of board members and the effectiveness of the perceived value.
Carol? Any others that may not be?
All the ones that jumped out at me have been asked.
Okay.
delved into. If I think it's a part of the process and part of the scope and the charter of the board, then I'll be persistent in what I think is right. So, I don't know if that's a weakness or just a characteristic, something that I can bring to a board. But I'll leave it at that. I'm, you know, team player, but I want to make sure that that we're following our rules, I guess. So maybe that's not a weakness.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Mike?
I don't have an additional question, but do you have any questions for us?
I do. And, you know, as you might have seen in my application, I have a couple part-time work responsibilities and some other volunteer commitments. So I want to make sure that but my schedule is very flexible, but I wanted to get maybe a good appreciation for the time commitment typically that the board would be expecting.
I can begin by answering that question, and others can jump in then. Generally, when we have our business meetings, they'll last an hour and a half, let's say. We meet the first Thursday of each month, from 2:30 till roughly 4. Now, if we have a grievance scheduled, we all try and get on the same calendar. A grievance can last, we were involved in one particular grievance that lasted 2.5 days last year. And that's full days with the exception of a lunch break. So, I'm never sure when a grievance is gonna be scheduled. I think it's the outside counsel, in consultation with the chair initially, we'll talk about a scheduled grievance, and then we'll all get together with our calendars. Is that not correct?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. The board has chosen to try to limit and I think rightfully so, limit the amount of exposure it's got to any of the issues that might come up about an actual file grievance. So while the chair is brought in to know just what's needed to be known to make initial sort of scheduling decisions and things like that, mostly those are left to the clerk's office to try to help us get everybody on the same page and the timing lined up for everybody to be present.
Okay. That helps a lot. I mean, I can devote significant time as long as I have enough notice, so that was my concern for a grievance. If we had we could be flexible, then I can.
And generally speaking, we're given a heads up of a couple weeks, if I'm not mistaken, prior to any scheduled grievance.
And I would think the general indicated you read the Civil Service Act, does talk about a 10 to 15 day window to try to get things calendared in. That's a goal, but in practical application, that's very difficult to do in that time period. So typically, that's the way it's gone, is that in order to get this entire board assembled and the parties and witnesses and everything lined up, it takes a good couple of weeks. And often I'm asking this or advising the chair to, grant an extension of that time.
Do you have any other questions?
No question, but I guess I have the one question you haven't asked me that everyone asks is, are you related to Sean Devereaux? And the answer is I'm not. I haven't met him. I did, if I could make just a final comment about my interest, if that's okay.
Sure.
I mentioned my experience that I thought could be helpful, my sort of independent mindset and my passion for the city. But I also wanted to say that, and and I appreciate you recognizing my military service, but what I plan not to bring, if I'm chosen, is sort of the general thing, okay? I serve proudly in the military, but I very much know that I am a humble citizen of Asheville, and if I can bring a little bit of my experience and mindset to the board, great, but what you won't see is a sort of military mindset. That's not who I am, that's who I was, but I'm Rick Devereaux now, not General Devereaux.
Thank you for that.
I appreciate that. Any other questions or questions from the candidate or board members? Well, I'd like to thank you for your time today.
Well, thank you very much for
being here.
yeah, thank you for considering me.
Thank you for.
I really appreciate that.
Mr. Devereaux, I'm a Paul Harris fellow,
Ah.
and I became one before I looked quite so much like Paul.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I drank the Rotary Kool-Aid after I moved here, and yeah, that's definitely more about who I am today.
I'd hold that one back. For the sake of further discussion.
That was my word.
You ready for Mr. Reno?
Yes, this would be Jimmy Wingo, right, James Wingo.
For one thing, Mr. Chairman, we did circle back on a couple additional questions, so, and I think that Mike has the right idea to try to ask the same ones. We just need to make
Yes,
sure to double
yeah.
back to the
And
same,
I-
the same ones.
Yeah, and I think I prefaced my initial comments with the importance of doing that, so
Yes.
we make
Just as, just
apples
saying
to
that,
apples
that would be-
comparisons
yes.
and. Anyone, all the same, I think they're all the same. Got left one
I didn't know
left.
if you had a specific.
They're all
spot you wanted
blue,
to say.
no, that's fine with me.
It's important what you choose.
That's right. Prize underneath there.
Well, I'd like to welcome you to the interview today. Thank you for applying for the position.
Thank you for having me.
Do you prefer James or Jim? Or Jim?
I've been called on that.
I bet you have in this service. I'm serving as acting chair for this meeting, so I'm going to give the first question, and then we're going to just kind of go down the line with questions for you, and then at the end, you'll have time to ask questions to us.
Yes, sir.
First of all, I know you served with the state highway patrol department for a good part of your career, but you also served in with the city's APD. I'm going to ask, and one of the things I'm always interested in, because we ask on the interview application if you have any business or financial conflicts of interest that you need to disclose. But because we're a quasi-judicial board, we take on additional responsibilities that other boards and commissions in the city do not have. And we're set up that way under state statute. could affect your delivery of objective, fair decisions, or cause you to recuse yourself from possible future grievance cases.
Absolutely not. I don't have anything that I could possibly even think of remotely that would interfere with any of these boards' decision making.
And no relationships with folks in, with city police department?
No, I have no.
Or city staff?
My sister's retired, my brother's getting ready to retire, my sister's retired from state government as well. And I have, that's it, that's all of us. Nobody, no family members at all work for the city.
Okay. Carol?
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor. Do you consider, what do you consider your professional strengths to be that you could bring to this board?
I believe being able to listen to things fairly and being able to make a good sound decision and not being, not being judgmental. I mean, you've got to, the facts are the facts. I believe that that's very important at this board, is just to listen to what the facts are and to make sure things are done right. And I believe, oftentimes we want to say, well, that's just terrible wrong, and it is. But you've got to slow down and look at everything and be methodical. And I'm kind of OCD and very much attention to detail, so I believe that my thoroughness would be a big strength of this board.
Okay, thank you.
I want to go back for a moment to the first question. Do you have any professional relationships, although retired, that may expose you to comments, biases, that could possibly influence your objectivity on this board?
You mean like people that I know or work at the city?
Organizations.
Organization, oh, yes, I guess so in that area. But, I don't really know that many people that work over there anymore. There's a large turnover, like at the police department. Of course, obviously, I worked as a police officer
Yeah,
years
more
ago.
specifically, not,
But like,
not within the city, but
Right.
organizations that you may belong to.
oh, yes, the
that
Federal
have-
Board of Police, yes, yes. Well, I think, could it? Absolutely. I think anybody could have a bias or something that's put on. But I'll give you, for instance, we had a trooper that was, before I went to Internal Affairs, we had a trooper that was fired. And I'm a member of the Federal Bureau of Police. And the FOP called me and said, we want to defend him. I said, absolutely not, I wouldn't, because he did wrong. And as it turned out, I didn't know the whole story, so his firing was wrong based upon procedure, so he ended up getting his job back. But here he is, a member of an organization that, I'm a member of, but it wasn't the right thing to do because what he done was wrong. So, could one perceive that? Yes, but right is right, wrong is wrong. Two wrongs don't make it okay to do something like that. So to answer your question, yes, I guess there's always that possibility, but that's not the way I operate.
I do have some formal questions for you.
Yes, sir.
How did you learn about the open seat on the Civil Service Board?
The first time I heard about it was some discussion with some friends of mine at a Fort Worth police meeting.
And why are you interested in the position? This position?
I retired in April, and I feel like I still have more to give to the community and to the county and the state. And I feel like I've got the time to do this. And I feel like that my background in internal affairs would bring more to the Well, I think that would be in poor taste. I don't think that launching a board that is trying to assist an agency or department such as human resources in making things fair and giving due process, I think would be a huge mistake to get rid of that board. I think everybody would like to have someone there to give them a second opinion, and I think this board can do that. And before they take an action, and I think we've seen in local government all over the state where things have went wrong, it ends up costing them money in the long run. So let's do it right the first time.
Thank you.
Jimmy, how do you view and weigh the balance between due process and efficiency when it comes to hiring, firing, promotional decisions, and disputes thereof between employees and supervisor department, city? Well, I think, you know, I don't want to give examples, but you have someone that does something extremely outrageous, and the community absolutely says that person's got to go. But, and I'm talking about from prior experiences, not anything here. And you've got this person that's done something wrong, but you don't have all your evidence. You don't have what you need. So efficiently wise, the best thing to do would be get rid of it, okay? And I've seen that done. And what ends up happening is they end up getting, the organization gets sued, and that person ends up getting their job back. So that not only hurts the organization, but it hurts the, what people feel about the disciplinary process and the due process altogether. So efficiently, that would be very efficient. But to me, the due process is more important. I mean, there's gotta be a line there. We gotta keep it even and make sure that what we're doing is right. And if it's right, then you know, that employee would have to go. Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
If you don't mind, I'd like to circle around to the first question I asked, and it's kind of a follow-up to Mark's question. I assume you've been a member of the FOP most of your law enforcement career,
Yes.
if not the entire career. Do you see, and not me, you, do you see that there could be a potential perceptual conflict? We've been under the, we've been in media quite a bit because of some of the decisions we've made. Do you feel that being a member of the FOP, still, I assume,
Yes.
could present a potential conflict for you?
I personally feel that it would not present a conflict because, again, what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. I have many times spoke out maybe against what other people think and said, let's hold on and wait till we get the whole story.
Mhm.
Because a lot of people jump on a bandwagon before they have the whole story.
Mhm.
And the media is a lot of cause of that, but they jump on a bandwagon, they don't get the whole story, and they get everybody confused. And I personally think if you sit and you hear the story, and you can feel confident in making that decision, I personally say no, I don't think that it would be a problem.
I'd then like to, if you don't mind, go on to my question I had, it's my second question. How do you feel about, we're five, when we're in full membership, five-member board? How do you feel about disagreements among board members on possible grievances or grievance outcomes when board consensus can't be achieved? What do you feel about consensus and differences of view among, that could occur between?
Well, I think there's always going to be some differences of opinion. I mean, you look at some hung juries and so forth like that, where people just cannot come together. But I think if the facts are laid out there and everybody problems that we see can be prevented through communication in the first place. But, you know, I think it's all about being able to sit down and talk about it. Will everybody agree on the same thing? No, probably not. But, you know, we have to agree to disagree sometimes and then move forward.
Carol?
Hopefully I have anything further. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mark?
What would you consider to be an obvious professional, personal weakness that the board should be aware of?
I think one thing that, and I don't know if you consider it a weakness and a strength, to me it's both, is what I said earlier. I really like to dot all I's and cross all T's, and the OCD really kicks in, so sometimes that can really slow things down when I want to make sure that it's so perfect. And so, I think that can be both. I think it's definitely probably a weakness too.
Mike?
Nothing for me, just, Jimmy, you have questions for us? No, I don't believe so. I appreciate the time and opportunity to come in and discuss this with you. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, sir. Always be ready, yes, sir. Thanks, sir. Appreciate it. Nice to meet you. Thank you, ma'am.
We have some time now because Jessica Lever is not supposed to be here until 4:30. So,
Yes, sir.
I have one
Go ahead.
question, council.
Yes, sir.
After our 3 interviews, do we go into private deliberation or it's also?
Everything's open.
Okay,
That's what I thought.
just what I thought.
There's no,
Good question
you know,
on the record.
the one basis, you know, because you're an open meetings body, you have to, the open meetings law sets out 7 different rounds that the body can go into closed session for. And this
Okay.
is closest to sort of like employment, but it's not. And so, on that basis, you'd have to have both.
Okay, fine. While we have a minute or two here, one of the things that we were gonna talk about tomorrow was your findings on substantive rules from legal research you've done.
Yes, sir.
And we can postpone and have that at a future business meeting. That was a question that you, I think it came from you, substantive rules.
I think we briefly touched on it in our last meeting. Council said that he was planning to deliver that tomorrow.
And I am, and I owe you some work on that. I apologize. This couple of weeks, right before school starts to get back together, all of our clients are getting the band back together, and we have to do presentations and things for them. So I'm a little swamped, but I will get that to you as quick as I
If you can get that to us, and then we can, at a future meeting, your next business meeting at your presence, we can have an open discussion on that at that time. Is that all right with you?
Works fine with me, yeah.
Okay. Okay, everybody?
And I'm just wondering then, do we have agenda items tomorrow? Is city planning to?
I talked to HR about, having that, assuming that we can vote on an appoint our 5th member, to have, an orientation tomorrow on the, board's responsibilities, the open, meeting rules, state law, and anything else that might pertain to the board. Just as a refresher, I think we can all, as board members, benefit from that, as well as the new board member joining us.
Do we know if our 5th member, if selected today, is available?
We don't know yet. Yeah. We don't know.
And Mr. Chairman, I know it's the will of the board, but I think given the, you know, you've got an hour before the next one's supposed to, I don't know if you have business for an hour, so you could stand in recess
Yeah.
until and if you do, I just remind the board members when you're at recess, don't engage your
Correct.
board business together.
Do you wanna